Hello my friends, today I will show you how to, using MHC Groom Hairs on N5 and G2 characters. First, you need to download N5 and G2 MHC Groom Hair support assets, here, link on description. Then extract zip file, copy and paste N5_MHC Groom Hair _support folder to your project content QuangFan folder. Open your project and in QuangFan folder, you will see N5_MHC Groom Hair _support folder here. This folder will contain the files that support the use of MHC Groom Hair. The mesh folder will contain the meshes used for binding groom, and the material folder will contain the basic material options to hide the binding mesh. Now let's get to the main part. Create a folder and name it Grooms or whatever you like. Here, I'll name the folder Grooms and place it inside the QuangFan folder. Next, you'll need Groom Hair. You can get it from my Fab store or my ArtStation store here. I'm currently offering a free trial pack. If you're satisfied, you can support me by purchasing other packs. Once you have the groom file, use the MHP_KG file and import it into the groom folder you just created in your project. Once you have the groom file, use the MHP_KG file and import it into the groom folder you just created in your project. To create groom binding for groom hair in the target skeleton mesh section, select SK_N5_scalp_female if you want to equip hair for a female character. The groom binding panel will automatically pop up, and here, pay attention to the source skeleton mesh section and select SK_N5_scalp_binding. This is an important choice. It helps the groom maintain its original shape and automatically adapt to fit the N5 character's head. To ensure groom hair accurately follows the head shape, we need the skeleton meshes to create a grooming guide map that follows the head shape of the character we're using. We've finished the groom binding setup. Now let's go back to the BP_character section and add the groom to character N5. Here, I will configure BP_N5 Combine because it is the parent BP of the other BPCBs. When I configure it at this BP, the other BPCBs will automatically update the changes. In BP_N5 Combine, under Mesh Character Mesh 0, create a child skeleton mesh and name it Scalp. And next, add Groom as a child of Scalp, which is very important because Groom will follow this mesh Scalp. I emphasized this point earlier. For the scalp section, you've equipped SK_N5_scalp_female. Currently, I've hidden it using a mask material. You can adjust the opacity parameter in the mask to 1 to make it visible. Switch to the Construction Script tab and drag the scalp into the blueprint frame. Then connect it to the target to synchronize the character's animation with the scalp. This allows the scalp to move in sync with the character. Return to the Groom Hair slot we created earlier. Equip Groom Hair in the Groom Asset slot and Groom Binding in the Binding Asset slot. Okay, go ahead and run a test to see how groom hair works. In the scalp section, where we previously set the opacity to 1 shown in black, now change it to 0 to hide it. Congratulations! You can now use MHC Groom Hair on your N5 character. You can do the same with other MHC Groom Hair packages in my store. In the next section, let's talk about the groom hair equipment on male characters. As you know, male characters tend to have larger bodies and wider necks than female characters, and naturally, the hair at the nape of the neck will often pierce through the character's skin. Don't worry, we just need to take a few steps to fix this problem. First, replace SK_N5_scalp_male in the scalp slot. Next, create a new groom binding asset for sk_n5_scalp_male, just as you did with the female character. Note that here, we use male instead of female. I will change the name of the groom binding set here so that you can distinguish it more easily. And always make sure to include sk_n5_scalp_binding in the source skeleton mesh box. Replace binding asset with the groom binding you just created. That's it. This is the result after we have completed all the steps correctly. With some long hairstyles, you may sometimes encounter problems because the hairs pierce through the character's body. This happens when we leave the groom's physic asset slot empty, or the groom's physic asset is corrupted, or the capsule collision is missing. Let's try checking the physical assets section of Groom Hair. This is a physics asset where I've removed all capsule collision to show you how Groom Hair works with the physics asset. Luckily, you don't need to create a physical asset anymore. I've already created two here for you, one for the male character and one for the female character. Of course, these are just the basics. For characters wearing outfits, you'll need to adjust the settings so that the groom's hair doesn't see through the clothing. Let's replace the physic asset for the female character here and see how the result changes. The groom hair part did collide with the character's body. However, as I mentioned, depending on the character's outfit and hairstyle, you need to adjust the capsule collision in physic asset accordingly for a more appropriate and realistic result. To adjust capsule collision, turn it on here. Remember that it only works if you adjust the physic asset you're using. Simply change and move the capsule to your desired position and adjust it to your needs. Okay, everything's done. I hope you had a pleasant experience. Your support motivates me to develop better products. Thank you very much.